All right, guys, welcome everyone to Apologetics, an introduction for the average Christian. And I made sure to put that in there because this stuff can get deep sometimes. Caleb, he and I are part of a couple of different apologetics groups, and 8 weeks is not a lot for this stuff. Just nod and smile. Right, exactly, J.O., the heavier the nod. I like that. No, that's good. That's good. And yeah, we're going to get into some of the practical applications of pulling this stuff out because that sometimes gets missed as well. All right, so about the class, real quick, just so that everybody's on the same page with all of this. So it's going to be an 8-week course, as we mentioned earlier. And during these 8 weeks, we're going to be introducing concepts of apologetics and Christian philosophy. I know a lot of people think Christian philosophy is like a misnomer, or they don't go together. They do, and you'll see. We're also going to be discussing common criticisms and objections to Christianity. And we're going to be learning the basics of using apologetics in evangelism, because ultimately the two things that apologetics really needs to do is strengthen believers' faiths who are already believers and help give arguments and reasons for those who are not believers to become believers. All right, so here's the topics we're going to cover. So this week is going to be an intro. Next week, we're going to be looking at how we can know God exists. Some real light topics, right? I'm going to give you a little disclaimer ahead of time. The first 2 weeks are heavy. I'm going to apologize. They're building blocks. It's just something we have to do. But you'll see, each week we're going to build upon different aspects of faith so that everything is there, and we've got that foundation so that we can do the more discussion points in the later part of the course. So after we establish that God can exist, we're going to talk about the Bible and how we can trust the Bible and how we can trust that the God of the Bible is the one worth following. Part of that, in the next week, we're going to be talking about Jesus' existence and his resurrection and evidence for that much. The week after that, we're going to be talking about what is a Christian. We're going to boil down what Christianity is down to the very basics, because so often we get caught up in all of our traditions and we add and forget what the Bible and other traditions from the very early church tell us that Christianity really is. Once we've got that established, we're going to talk about the different sects of Christianity. We're going to talk about Christians who maybe are less Christian. We're going to be talking about cults and false religions and some of the differences there and what makes them cults and false religions. Then we're going to talk about arguments from atheists and skeptics of Christianity. And finally, we're going to have the conversation. We're going to look at ways to talk with Christian or with agnostics and atheists and skeptics and other Christians for that matter from an apologetic standpoint, and how we use that from an evangelism aspect as well. So, in this age, I made a class Facebook page. All right, yeah. So because we only have an hour each week to discuss this. Today is 40 slides. Okay, I'm sorry. It's what it is. Jane's like, "Can I print this back, front and back for you?" I said, "Yes, you may. We're gonna save pay. We're good stewardship of the earth, right?" Okay, we're going to be talking about tools to dig deeper and think critically about these things. So we can't go too deep. It's an hour per topic. College courses give a semester or two on each of these topics to begin with, all right? But I'm going to give you the tools so that you know what we're talking about, because there's a lot of bad theology out there. Okay, so I want to give you the ability to recognize those things when people are saying them. What? No, we never run into bad theology anywhere. This page is set up to be a place to ask questions. Okay, so we can have discussions outside of the class time. If it's something that we don't have time for, or something you think of over the week, or past this, I'm not going to take the page down. It's for resources. All right, we're going to have some YouTube videos and channels that I've already got some recommendations up there, and the reasons why I recommend those channels. We're going to have some articles that I'll post up that pertain to some of the stuff we've discussed or things that might be interesting to those who are interested further. And I'm also going to be putting the notes, so this stuff here. So this is I'm going to be posting those files up there as PDFs, as well as we're recording the video. So you guys can go back if anybody wants those as a resource, either for yourself or for people who are interested that you can refer them to. So, and that's that. You can snap a picture now, or it's going to be on a handout later, so don't worry about it. I'll give you, oh, look at you guys. 75%. Right, this is true. Like I said, it'll be on a handout later. I don't want to call it homework. It's a handout, so it's stuff to get you thinking for next week. And right, this is true. This is true. So, all right. So, what is apologetics? You stole some of my thunder, Pastor. It's okay. It's all right. It's okay. I told you. If that's all I had, I shouldn't be teaching this class. All right. So it's not an apology for being a Christian, even though the words sound the same. They have the same root. It's from the Greek word apologia, right? See, it sounds like apology, which is speaking in the defense of. Okay, so you're giving reasons. You're defending those ideas. All right, why apologetics? We're going to go through all the big who, what, where, whens, right? So Christianity is in decline. We talked about this a little bit on Sunday. I was telling Jason, I think this study is similar to the one he quoted. It may even be the same one where they messed the numbers around. So this is a 2021 study from Pew Research that shows that from 2007, the nuns, we call them, so people who don't claim any faith whatsoever, gained 13 percentage points. Right? They went from 16 points in 2007, 16 people, 16% in this study, to 29% who don't claim any religious faith whatsoever. Other religions gained 1%. They went from 5 to 6. And this is in the U.S., by the way, just so you know. Christianity, however, you'll notice the top line and the middle line kind of move together in opposite directions. Christianity went from 78% in 2007 down to 63%, and maybe even 57% if this was done a year later, like Jason was talking about on Sunday. So in 14 years, American non-Christians have doubled from 2 in 10 to nearly 4 in 10, while Christianity, people who claim Christianity, has decreased. All right. Furthermore, the numbers are worse in Europe, okay? And what happens in Europe, a couple years later, tends to happen in America. It all moves this way, right? So millennials and Zoomers, if you're not familiar with those terms, a millennial is somebody in their early 20s or mid-20s to early 40s. I know that may shock a couple people who've read some articles and stuff. So people like me, J.O., Caleb, Josh, we're millennials, all right? Zoomers are people in their late childhood through their mid-20s. Yeah, Chris. Yes. Okay, boomer. All right. So in Northern Europe, so places like Finland, Norway, Denmark, 20% of Zoomers and millennials claim Christianity. So we get into Eastern Europe, it's as few as 9%. And this is as of 2018, so that's 4 years ago. So,
just to piggyback on that, I don't know if you remember the missionary we had, Megan and Nate Turner. They're in Scotland now, but they said I think there was like, I think it was like 7% when they came here.
yeah, these ideas travel, okay? Especially now, internet, all that fun stuff. So this is what we're looking at. And this is what we need to prepare ourselves, our kids, our friends, and everybody around us to the ends of the earth, right? Somebody important said that about Christianity. All right, so is apologetics biblical? Yeah. Okay. Yes. All right, so I'm just going to give a couple examples here because there's so many. Paul's example in Acts 17, all right? Now, when they had passed through Amphipolis, yeah, I'm not trying that one, and Apollonia, yeah, thanks, Greek people. They came to Thessalonica, I knew that one, where there was a synagogue of the Jews. And Paul went in and was his custom, and on 3 Sabbath days he reasoned with them from the scriptures, explaining and proving that it was necessary for the Christ to suffer and to rise from the dead, and saying, "This Jesus, who I proclaim to you, is the Christ." So he's reasoning, he's explaining, and a couple passages later, you'll see him arguing on Mars Hill with some philosophers of Greek origin. So he's taking it to religious people, he's taking it to those heathen pagans. Furthermore, we get Peter's command. So we got Paul's example. We actually have a command from Peter in 1 Peter. He says, "But in your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone that asks you for a reason." Hey, those are words, right? We use defense, reason. "For the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect." That's going to be a few weeks later, okay? Remember having the conversation. That's a problem. Caleb? Do we see that issue in any of our apologetics groups? Reason, gentleness and respect. You are. Yeah. Some of us get into it a little bit. It's okay. It's expected in that venue. It's understood by the participants. All right. So apologetics and the culture. Yeah. So apologetics is a means of engaging the culture. All right. Western culture for millennia, logic and reason ruled the West and the Near East culture. Okay. Even in today's world, where relativism rules, which we'll talk about those ideas later, good logic and reason carry great weight in discussion. So that's why we're going to need this stuff. Okay. And it's just a matter of making good arguments. It's going to counter the soundbite arguments of today. So everyone pretty much knows, like you hear all these, there's no actual arguments, it's just statements, right? It's a soundbite. It's like, no, you're a hater. Christianity's stupid. TikTok. Who's on TikTok at all? I'm judging you a little bit. It's okay. Fair enough. You're his wife. That's kind of your job. So we're actually going to get into some TikTok arguments later in this course, because those are great sound bites that you will hear, literally people on the streets. All right. They're great. They're great examples. TikTokers are very confident in their opinions. Pot calling the kettle black. Anyway. All right. And then cultural influencers also respond well to apologetics. These are going to be people like lawyers, doctors, engineers, teachers, the people who like logic and systems. Okay. These are the people that influence the culture a lot. Okay. It may fall into a logical fallacy, which we'll talk about later, but it doesn't negate the fact that their opinions carry a lot of weight. All right. So, apologetics and evangelism. No, I'm sorry. Okay. Apologetics is a mental fertilizer for the gospel, okay? Apologetics uses reason and logic to work through the structure that God built into that universe, okay? It's a good apologetic with rhetoric primes the mind. So in the same way, Jesus liked his agricultural metaphors and the like, okay? So as your mind gets fertilized, as it starts being able to wrap their ideas around these things, it opens people up more over time to hearing the message of God and reach our hearts and turn our souls to God in turn. The sum of the arguments, okay? Few people come to God purely through logical arguments, but often the cumulative aspect of all of these arguments put together and the strength of a good argument, using those arguments, can serve to contribute to an eventual acceptance of the gospel. And finally, the idea of creating the pebble in the shoe. Who's had a little pebble in their shoe before and couldn't take their shoe off? They were like in some weird spot that they couldn't get it out. It's a wonderful experience, isn't it? Okay, it sits there and it's this tiny little thing that just digs at you and digs at you and digs at you, and the more it's in there, the more you notice it. All right. Pam, you're having way too much fun with this analogy. All right. So we're going to discuss this more at the end of the course where we're having conversations with real people. But the ideas of giving that nagging little thought that they can't shake, not focusing on winning the argument right then and there, but giving them something to kind of mull over in their head, that's really the sort of thing over time that's what's going to make apologetics effective in evangelism. All right. So, additionally, apologetics helps strengthen our own faith. All right. When you're working through theological ideas, apologetics forces us to look at our own beliefs and make sure that they work. All right. And explaining things to others has a way of making us better understand things. We got a couple teachers here in some fashion or another. But anybody who's ever taught a skill, just a friend or something, have you ever found that as you're teaching that, something you thought you knew really well, you actually end up learning it better, okay, and understanding it better because you've had to work through those concepts yourself. And by better understanding our own faith, we can better lead others to faith, right? So again, this is stuff that's cumulative, builds up. Apparently that was a trigger. Anyway. All right, so apologetics is uniquely effective in Christian evangelism because, so anybody have any thoughts on that? So moreover, because apologetics you can apply to anything, right? It's speaking in the defense of it. It's most often a Christian thing. But in Christianity, it's particularly effective because Christianity is the only system, only belief system, religious system, that's actually testable. You can prove if it's true or false, right? Because Jesus either resurrected or he didn't. I mean, it comes down to that, plain and simple. A lot of people, when they talk about faith, it's, blind faith, you just believe things because you have faith. It's just a belief. God, if you notice, never asks us for blind faith. He always gives reasons and evidence for the belief. You can, reference things in the Bible where, he's directly communicating with people. And we'll talk about, again, in 2 weeks, why we can trust these things in the Bible. The Egyptian plagues, okay, the miracles in the wilderness, Elijah and his ministry and all those miracles that happened there and how those drew people back to God. Jesus, that's in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. He was a physical person. He was performing miracles, the prophecies not only that he gave, but that he fulfilled, as well as his physical death and resurrection, because that's kind of important. We need to learn to communicate these things to both encourage those in faith and to give people reasons to accept the faith. All right. All of these other belief systems are either revelations to a human responsible for spreading that revelation. So things like Islam, Mormonism, right? You get this one person who gets revelation, and that's literally all they get, and nothing else to back these things up, and that's the basis of it. Or it's a philosophy. So it's things like Confucianism, Buddhism, Taoism, paganism, and secularism. That's a big one today. So these philosophies, when we think of philosophy, often we're thinking of ancient Greeks in robes or academics in their ivory towers trying to figure out whether or not they exist. Yeah, it's a thing. All right, but what is philosophy? Philosophy, another Greek word. Okay, I promise we're not going to go too far into the Greek. Not bad. All right, philo means love. Sophie is of knowledge, so love of knowledge. People who love knowledge are philosophers, and they work these things out. So what is philosophy? According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, one of the definitions that I like the best and cherry-picked for this presentation, is the most basic beliefs, concepts, and attitudes of an individual or group. Who here has a philosophy? Hey, okay, the rest of you aren't thinking very hard. All right. Everybody has a philosophy. You have beliefs in your worldview that you've decided on, one way or the other. Okay.
We'll win the Super Bowl one day.
Next week we're going to be talking about sound and unsound philosophies. All right. Here's another definition that I cherry-picked because I liked it, also from Merriam-Webster. Philosophy is a discipline comprising as its core logic, aesthetics, ethics, epistemology, and metaphysics. Only one more Greek reference, I promise. All right, so logic is the study of thought and correct reasoning. We're going to be talking on that next week. Aesthetics is the study of beauty. I need to work on that one. Ethics is the study of morality, right and wrong. Epistemology is the study of knowledge. And metaphysics, I know it says next page. All right, so the metaphysical, meta means beyond, and physical is of or related to material things. So metaphysical means beyond the material world. Okay? Chart time. People watching at home, I know you're not going to see this. You don't want to see my handwriting anyway, so you're better off. All right, so we've got physical. And metaphysical. So, what are some important things in your life? Name them. Family. That's a good one. I'm actually going to put that on both. Because family is a physical thing, but the concept extends beyond us. Anything else? What else? Health. Okay. We'll call that physical, mostly. Anybody else have anything? The Bible? Okay. We'll put that one in both. The Bible is a physical thing, but there's some metaphysical concepts in there. You guys, anybody else? Oh. Yeah. Integrity. Ooh. What do you guys think? Mm-hmm. I'm leaning towards metaphysical on that one because the concepts behind it are beyond the physical world. Okay. Anybody? Hope? Oh, that's definitely metaphysical. Fair enough. I got more, don't worry. It could. Like I said, it's for our purposes, we'll talk physical health. We'll hang out on that side. Okay, so as Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. You guys got some work to do. Okay, so here's some lists that I came up with on the physical. You guys hit a couple of them, not a lot. It's okay, don't hurt. So physical things like the air, the world, money, your job, food, time. Time can be metaphysical. That's mostly physical. Are you talking cryptocurrency? Is that where you're getting at?
Most transactions are all electronic in some shape or form.
Yeah, but electrons are physical.
But it still exists, but
Right. Now your attitudes regarding money, that falls into metaphysical. So metaphysical things, we've got love, acceptance, knowledge, identity, morality, self-worth, wisdom, beauty. Again, I got to work on some of these. All right. So secularism, we mentioned that earlier. Okay. Apparently. It's a long distance, man. It takes the Wi-Fi. All right, so secularism is the indifference to or rejection of or exclusion of religion and religious considerations. So it's stuff in the world, right? It's the battery's still good. No, we're good. Oh, apparently I had to include Merriam-Webster and cite it in there. Okay. There we go. Okay. So, secularism all falls down on the physical side, right? By definition, it doesn't move outside of the physical. It's all the science and stuff. Which science, that's a philosophy too. You use science to understand things. You choose to understand your world through empirical observation. That's next week too. All right. So, the problem we have is that secularism is things like my truth, love is love, human worth. These are the ideas we hear in secularism. Anybody notice anything about this? Where do these concepts fall that secularism loves to quote? Which side? You have 50-50 chance. Metaphysical. All right, guys, come on. All right, so these are all metaphysical concepts. Secularism wants all of these ideas that come from the metaphysical side because they're nice and they feel good. But they refuse to acknowledge that it holds any bearing outside of they like it and it feels good. That's what we call practical atheism. Okay, atheism that ignores its own understanding of the universe for ideas that feel better. I prefer to call it convenient atheism. Okay, so how do we counter convenient atheism? By showing its inconsistencies in its belief. The Vulcan way, okay? Logic. So we quoted that one a little earlier too. Logic is the study of thought and correct reasoning. All right, when we're using logic, there are rules that are in place that help keep our arguments both consistent and honest. All right, we're going to call these the 10 Commandments. Or no, these are the laws. I'm sorry, we'll get into the 10 Commandments of logic. All right, so the first one is the law of identity. Whatever is. Okay, I think you guys can understand that one. For any proposition A equals A. I'm sorry, it sounds like math. There's not a lot of math. All right, so the law of identity. If something is something, it's something. All right, the law of non-contradiction. Nothing can both be and not be. Makes sense, right? Everybody following so far? All right, for any proposition A cannot equal B. They're two separate things. And the law of the excluded middle. Everything must either be or not be. I'm disappointed in myself for not using that Star Wars quote. That's why I keep you around, Jason. There is no try. All right. So as we're forming arguments, make sure we're remembering these things, okay? Now, the 10 Commandments of logic. Some of you probably have heard these before, but we're going to go over them. 1, ad hominem. Thou shalt not attack the person's character, but the argument itself. That's a big one today. All right. All right, so things like, why would I listen to an idiot like you? Okay. I do. Yes, I got that reference, Caleb. That's from one of our apologetics groups. You only work at Dillard's. All right. Straw man fallacy. Thou shalt not misrepresent or exaggerate a person's argument in order to make them easier to attack. That's another one we hear a lot. So religion denies scientific evidence. So if you're religious, then you necessarily deny the legitimacy of the science project. If you're religious, then you don't believe in science. All right, so an oversimplification. Okay, hasty generalizations. You shall not use small numbers to represent the whole. Okay, things like, I've met 3 redheads and they're all mean, so all redheads are mean. Okay, right? A lot of them are. All right, begging the question, thou shalt not argue thy position by assuming one of its premises are true. The earth is round because we've known it forever. Okay? Sure. Doesn't prove anything. All right. The next one, post hoc or false cause. A black cat crossed my path, then I got into a car accident. The black cat caused the car accident. So just because something happens doesn't mean it caused it. What is the old one? In summertime, sales of ice cream go up. In summertime, drownings go up. So ice cream causes people to drown. Makes sense, right? Okay. You never heard that? All right, number 6, the false dichotomy. Thou shalt not reduce the argument down to only 2 possibilities when there's a clear middle ground. That does not break Rule 3 from earlier, okay? So, let's see. You're either with me or you're against me. That is the way of the Sith. All right, only Sith deal in absolutes. I got one in there. Some more Latin. Ad ignoratum. Thou shalt not argue that because of our ignorance, the claim must be true or false. God must exist, since no one can demonstrate that he does not exist. See, I'm using some of ours in here too. All right. Prove to me God doesn't exist. You can't, because you can't prove a negative, so therefore he exists. Ha. Which closely ties into the burden of proof reversal. Thou shalt not lay the burden of proof unto him that is questioning the claim. Ghosts exist, so if you don't believe me, prove they don't. Okay? So if you're making a claim, you're the one that has to prove it. The non sequitur, not just a great comic strip. So in the Latin, it means does not follow. So an example would be David eats broccoli. David should like to eat meat too. Probably does, but there's no connection between the 2 points, right? And finally, the bandwagon fallacy. All cultures have believed in God, so you should too. All right? Thou shalt not claim that because a premise is popular, therefore it must be true. Right? So just because, like, it may be a great reason, you can add that in, but that alone is not going to give you an argument. Okay? Another one that I referenced earlier was appeal to authority. Okay, you can't. This doctor says, so because the doctor said, he's a doctor, so he knows, so the doctor is right. Okay, what are the doctor's reasons? All right. So philosophy and Christianity. All right. Philosophy is how we understand God. Okay, this is a big part of Christianity, right? Philosophy entails how we look at the universe, how we view humanity, and how we read the Bible. You guys starting to figure out some of your philosophies now? So, do you read the Bible as pure historical narrative? Do you read it as poetry? Do you read it as allegory? Do you read it as pure myth? How do you view humanity? Is humanity inherently good? Is humanity inherently bad? Where did the universe come from? Okay. What is God? So we have some homework, apparently. This is the last slide, so we're good. All right, so, and we can discuss some of these things now, too, if you want, since we do have some time. I wasn't sure how long some of this was going to take. So, I want you to think over the next week, or as we discuss now, so what are some of your personal philosophies? I'm not asking you to write your philosophy. Just give me some points on it. What are some things that make your understanding of the universe and God and everything? No, come back here. All right. So, this pertains to next week. What are some of the reasons that you believe God exists? Conversely, what could cause you to believe that God doesn't exist? That's going to be a tough one for some. Okay. And the fourth point, join the Facebook group. I've got some stuff up there already. Like I said, I've got some video channel recommendations. I've got these notes up already. As soon as I get a chance to edit this video, we're going to put that up there for your reference. If you're not a Facebooker, Caleb and I have a YouTube channel that we're in the process of starting, so this will be the first video on there. I can send that to you too if you're not on Facebook. Another thing, like I said earlier, a lot of these topics we're just skimming. Okay, we can't go very deep. We don't have a lot of time to do this over 8 weeks, and I don't want to go longer than 8 weeks because you guys tend to lose attention. So, you know, if you guys notice something that you want to learn more about, you know, that's something we can look at in the future, you know, and maybe do a couple-week course on. So think about those things too. We can talk with Pastor Josh and maybe schedule something, or ask questions on the Facebook page. That's what it's there for.